In this video, I want to show you how to fix a worn out bar. I got these two bars recently, or kind of recently, off eBay. I just got them for this purpose. I just bought ones that looked pretty worn out. These were around, I think I paid around 35 bucks a piece for them with shipping. That included shipping. And I didn't expect to get much. You know, these are both steel branded bars, and you know, for that price, that's, they tend to be around 100 for that brand or more, depending on what size you get and all that. This one is a 24-inch hard tip, and it's been used some, you can tell. This one's a 28-inch, and this has a sprocket tip, and they're both 50 gauge. They're originally 50 gauge bars, and you know, I bought them and they're pretty worn. This one was really used a lot, I can tell. I inspected it, and the first thing I'm going to show you is just how to inspect them. You know, how to look at them and see if they're worth trying to save. What I did here was I'm using this because this will fit right inside the bar groove. It's a thin center finding ruler, and I measured. There's where it starts. It doesn't start the tape measure doesn't, or the ruler doesn't start right at the end. So I measured using this. You probably can't see it there because the lighting is bad in here, but I just measured and counted how many 30 seconds of an inch until that mark, and it worked out to where that mark, actually on this side because I have it marked, from the end to this first mark is 7/32 seconds of an inch. And so I kind of lucked out there because I measured these. This is a brand new section of chain, unused section of chain. It's a Carlton full chisel chain. And I measured how many 30 seconds of an inch this chain, the drive link is on this chain. And it happens to be about 7/30 seconds also. So that kind of gives me an idea of, on these bars, if that groove is worn out to where it's less than 7/30 seconds, I'll know that, you know, it's not going to hold the chain too well. And so what I did was, since that's 7/30 seconds, I can easily check it, and I can't go by the very edge because that groove is actually worn down in. But I just took it, and you know, I could see that mark there, and I just looked at it. I went on down, and I already checked it, and way down here where the bar was used the most, and it was actually on the bottom where the words are. This section here is the most worn, but it still has 1/32, so it's like 8/30 seconds or 2 whatever. It's 8/30 seconds, and 4/16, 2/8, 1. Yeah, about a 1/4 inch. Yeah, it's about a 1/4 inch left, and I can see, you can't see there probably, but if I go here, I can't even see it with this lighting, but I checked it, and it's just 1/32 above that line. And then this drive link, it was 7/30 seconds. So this bar, according to that, should be good as far as that goes. The other thing I check is how straight they are. This bar, you know, the the rails, I just call it the rails, you know, where I'm checking to see how deep it is and if they can be squared up, and they can be squared up to where the drive links won't touch the bottom, you know, bottom out on it. So that part looks like it'll be good. I can probably get a little bit more use out of this bar. The next thing I do is I check for straightness, and this one is pretty straight. I mean, it has a little bit of a bend to it, but that's really not, you know, I can tell because if I push it that way, where here, you know, there's a little bit of gap in there. But this one's, I can look down it and it doesn't look that bad. It'll be pretty easy to straighten that one, I think, and it doesn't really need it that bad. I'm not too worried about that one. This one, I can look down it and it's pretty bent. I don't know if you can see it there, but it's pretty bent. But here I can put that. That's got a little bit more gap to it. And probably if I go from this, I think the bend is probably closer down here. It's got a little bit more bend to it, and it's a shorter bar. And probably somebody might have got it stuck, you know, stuck in a stump or something. I'm kind of guessing that it might have been for a stump saw because it's a hard nose. They're better for dirty conditions, I guess. And maybe somebody was down in the stump. I'm just guessing. I don't know. But as far as the groove, it's pretty good. I mean, it's got at least a 1/16 of an inch on even on the most worn spots. So this one has a lot of life left if I can straighten it out. I don't think it'll cut too well especially for milling with it being bent like that. It's not real bent, but I think I can fix it. And later I'll show you how I do it. And then as far as the rails being square, I took a carpenter square and just kind of went along. It's actually not that bad that way either. It looks like somebody had already kind of took a rail dresser to this, because it's you can tell when they're when the chain rests on it, it'll wear a groove, and then the edges will kind of get a sharp spot. And this one's already been dressed by someone. Somebody took a little bit of care of it, but it got bent, and that's about that for that. The other thing I do is I'll take a feeler gauge. You can take a feeler gauge. Another thing you can do is, you know, this is supposed to be 50 thousandths, and I take it, you know, 50 thousandths worth of feeler gauge and just run it through there and see how loose it is. A quick check if you have a chain on it and you think it, you know, if you're milling, oh, this is actually a 58 gauge chain, so, and it fits in there. So for a 50 gauge bar, it gets a little tight up here, but it fits where the worn spot is, so that needs to be closed there, because that'll probably give me problems. When your 50 gauge bar is worn out to where a 58 gauge chain fits in it, it's probably going to start, if you have a 50 gauge chain on it, it's going to, what'll happen is it can dive or climb, and that's when your chain actually, it'll pull out of the groove. You know, that usually happens if your rails are also out of square, because it'll lean and then it'll want to pull right out of that cut, and you won't be able to keep cutting. It'll just pull right out. But this bar maintenance will fix that and fix the strain, and I mean, as long as your chain is also in good shape. But that's one way. Like if I don't have I don't have a little section of chain, but of 50 gauge right now, but basically laid in there, and you take one of these and put it on the cutter, and there should be a gap in there, and because this is a 58 gauge chain, there's gonna, you know, there's a gap there. If the whole bar was 58, if this fit in the whole bar, I'd just use a 58 gauge chain on it. But it gets really tight here. That would generate a lot of heat. And then for the tip is still 50 gauge. It's the hardened tip, I guess. And I'm not gonna try and open up that tip. I think that might be, it might be easier. I don't know, but I think what I'm gonna do is just close it down so it'll fit a 50 gauge chain again. That's a difficult part of the maintenance job, is closing the rails. But that's probably what I'll do with this. This one I believe was still okay. I'll see, check with this chain here. Well, no, it fits that too. Actually, that might be a 58 gauge bar. No, it's pretty tight in there. It could probably take a 58 gauge. You know, I might be able to open up the tight spots. Whenever I've done that, worn a bar out to where it fits a bigger drive link, at first it might be a little tight and a little, you know, where you have to open up spots, and you have to be careful because, you know, it can get real hot. But the chains, it works really well when you do that, because that chain is, you know, once you get all the tight spots worked out, it'll really sit in there solid, and you can get nice smooth straight cuts. Like it won't want to stray because that's tight in there, and you don't have to, you know, try and close the rails. It's just easier to put a 50 gauge or 58 gauge chain on if it's worn out. That's a little tight, but I'd probably open that one up instead of closing the groove tighter. I'd rather just open, you know, kind of pry open the tight spots. This is a brand new bar. It's a 36-inch bar, and I just got this out because I wanted to measure how deep these grooves were, and it was, I don't know if I remember right, it was almost 11 30-seconds. So that would be closer to 10 30-seconds or 5/16. So it's a hair over a 1/4 inch, or a 1/16 over a 1/4 inch. And the drive link, I don't know if they're all the same, but this Carlton drive link is 7 30-seconds. So if it were 11 30-seconds, that would give me 4 30-seconds basically, but it was closer to 10 30-seconds. So that pretty much gives you a full 3 30-seconds of wear before that would bottom out. And I don't know if all these are the same. I'm just going by what I have here. I imagine they're pretty standard. I mean, one thing you might do if you have a bar and that's worn out, you could probably hit them with a grinder, but I don't think that would, I don't know how safe that would be. You might throw chains a lot. I don't know. Never tried it. Never got to that point. I actually have never worn out a bar because I rebuild chainsaws and sell them, and then I'll, you know, throw a bar on there, and, you know, because people like to buy it with a bar already, and then I'll end up buying a new bar eventually, and, you know, so I'm always buying and selling stuff. But I have one bar that I decided to keep. It's a Forester bar, and it's getting pretty worn down, but it's still in use. I've had it for, you know, between 5 to 10 years. I don't know exactly how long, and of course I don't use it every day. Like last year, I milled like 2 or 3 times, just small amounts. And then some years, like this year, I'm probably gonna have a lot of milling. I don't know. I might even wear it out this year. But when I get there, I'll see if I can do anything to prolong the life of it. But I don't know. But that's basically how I inspect them. Just inspect, see if they're straight, see if the groove is wider than it should be. And if it's in between 50 to 58 gauge, I still use them. They can still cut straight. Your cut gets a little rougher, like the finish on the boards, but it pretty much will stay in the groove and not jump out. But once they hit 58, that seems like the point where, you know, they'll want to jump out a little bit. And then you check for squareness. I have my carpenter square taken apart, but you know that you just have your ruler in there, and then you just check it with a square, and so all those things can be fixed, except once you get worn down to where your chain's bottoming out, then obviously that won't work. But the other way I was talking about was I just take this and add up to where it's 50 gauge or 58 gauge and just keep running it through and seeing how much you got. I mean, what I generally do is if it's a 50 gauge bar, I'll take a 58 gauge drive link, then go, just like I showed you, because you can use these, but it's just quicker and easier to say, oh yeah, that's worn out. That's my gauge. Is if it's 58, then it's worn. That's worn out. If you can put a 58 gauge chain on it, that's a good thing. This one, I don't know. I'm just afraid to try and open that up. I don't want to mess that up. It might mess the bar up. But, and the 50 gauge Forester bar I have, that one I actually put a 58 gauge chain on. I've been using that one for a long time. That one, it's the thickness of the groove, it hasn't really opened up that much. Like it's been, like I put that 58 gauge chain on and it's still pretty good. It's been lasting a while. Mostly the grooves are what, or the rails are what wears out. They get lower. I'll dress them over and I mill, because sometimes I'll mill a lot of narrow stuff because I do building materials like 2x4s and 2x6s and stuff like that, and so it really hits this area of the bar, and so I'm dressing it like almost every time, like every day I mill, because I might cut 20 boards in a day sometimes, and that's just a lot of pressure in that one area, over and over using the same cut. It gets hot and it'll wear out pretty quick. But that's how I inspect them pretty much. There's not much to it. It's just the straightness, the groove, and the rails, and how whether your chain will fit in there or not. But, next, I guess we'll get into straightening them, because that's usually the first thing I do is see if I can straighten them out.